Hey, what's up you guys? It's Ruthie and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we're going to go into part 2 of chapter 3 of 4 Perfect Pebbles by Lila Pearl and Marianne Blumenthal-Lazan. So let's get right into this video. This video may contain sensitive topics and foul language. If you do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. The men slept in narrow barrack bunks atop one another and were given little food or water. Some were put to work in a nearby stone quarry, and it was shattering for Ruth to think of Walter, always dignified and deeply proud of his ability to protect his family, so helpless and degraded. When her spirits were at their lowest, a postcard arrived from Walter. It was dated November 18th, and it was indeed from Buchenwald. A printed notice on the card warned the prisoner to use a large, clear handwriting, or the censors would not pass it out on for delivery. My loved ones, Walter had written, I am, thank God, healthy and hope for the same for you. Don't write to me because there is no incoming mail. Don't send money. Hope our two darlings are well again. Hugs and kisses to you all. Walter, Papa. He had written nothing about when he would be released. Had the Gestapo officer broken his promise to forward notice of Walter's status to the holder of an American quota member to the camp? What should Ruth do? That night and the next she went again to the railroad station in vain. On the night of the 21st she remained at home. Very late in the evening the doorbell rang. Fearful of bad news, Ruth went to the door. It was Walter, wearing the same clothes in which he'd been arrested, now dirty and rumpled. He had not been able to bathe or shave during the 11 days he'd spent at the camp. Not that evening or any future time did he speak of what his life in Buchenwald had been like. The only thing he told Ruth and the children was that before being discharged he had been required to sign a document stating that he had been correctly treated. Also, according to the terms of his release, he and his family were to be out of Germany within 3 months. Who, Ruth asked, would want to stay in Germany after Christian thought? It was more than just a warning. It was the beginning of the end. Now, indeed, it was clear that not only would Jews who remained on German soil live as impoverished and despised outcasts, but their very survival from day to day would be in question. Nor did it appear that any other nation was going to interfere in Germany's internal affairs, least of all its treatment of Jews. On November 12th, as an immediate aftermath of Kristallnacht, the government levied a fine of 1 billion marks on its Jewish population for the damage caused by the Jewish presence in the country. The real purpose of this enormous expiation payment was to make sure that no Jew profited from an insurance claim for destroyed property, and to drain off as much as possible of any remaining Jewish wealth. This money and similar levies were to help Germany rearm itself for the war it was planning to wage for the conquest of Europe. The Blumenthal apartment in Hanover was now the scene of urgent preparations for departure. We were lucky, Ruth said, to get a permit to leave for Holland, where Tante Rosie, Walter's younger sister, who had married a Dutch citizen, lived. Not everybody could get a permit just to pick up and go to another country. By late December, the family's furniture and other possessions that had been brought from Hoya were ready to be packed into 3 large containers. These were to go into storage in the Dutch port city of Rotterdam, for it was from there that the Blumenthals planned to sail to the United States. Meantime, they would wait in Holland for the still lacking visa. Included in their containers were linens and silver that would one day be part of a 4-year-old Marianne's wedding trousseau. Handing down such items was a family tradition that went back for generations. For the train journey to Holland, the Blumenthals would carry only a few suitcases. However, before their packing could be completed, all the goods they were taking out of Germany had to be inspected by the Zollverzeichnis, a special customs agency set up to confiscate jewelry, gold watches, silverware, and other items of value. But, said Mama, when they came to the apartment, they went much further than just taking jewelry. Of the 12 blankets we owned, they allowed us to keep only 4. Of warm coats, 1 for each of us. For jewelry, they allowed me only a watch and my wedding band. Then they wrapped everything they were taking away from us in blankets and slung them over their shoulders and left. They didn't even give us a receipt. In January 1939, carrying only the small departure allowance of 10 marks in cash, Ruth and Walter, 4-year-old Marianne, and 6-year-old Albert boarded the train for Holland. Their neighbors, the Danbergs, bade them farewell and promised to see them and see that their 3 containers of household goods remaining in the apartment in Hanover would be picked up and transported to Rotterdam. Even though it meant leaving behind almost everything we had worked so hard for, Mama said, we were relieved and glad to put dangerous Germany behind us. We hoped we would be safe, at least until the time came for us to sail for the United States. Yet in our hearts we sensed that this was going to be the start of an uneasy and worrisome life, and yes, an uncertain future. And then it stops right there, and it's got pictures that I'm going to show you, and I'm going to read the little descriptions under the picture. Hitler, the Nazi Party leader, delivering a speech in 1935, 1 year after he became both Chancellor and President of Germany. Followers of Hitler offering the Nazi salute at a rally in Berlin, in German capital. Oh, more pictures, okay. The yellow Star of David with the word Jew, German for Jew, inscribed in black. Members of the Hitler's Youth in uniform and swastika armband was worn on the left arm. Brown-shirted Nazi stormtroopers enforcing the 1933 boycott of Jewish-owned businesses. The signs reads, Germans, defend yourselves, don't buy from Jews. And then I'll do the other page too. The Bloomfield family house and store in Hoya, Germany, 1930. Ruth Moses and Walter Bloomfield visiting Hanover during their engagement in August 1931. In Hoya, 1935, Ruth with Marianne, 6 months old, and Albert, age 2.5. More pictures, okay. Albert and Marianne, ages 5 and 3, after their families moved from Hoya to Hanover. The Central Synagogue in Hanover after it was blown up by the Nazi demolition teams on Kristallnacht in November 1938. Walter Bloomfield's postcard written to his family from Buchenwald on November 18, 1938, stating that he is well, but telling them not to write, inquire after him, or send any money. More pictures, okay. Discharge certificate from Buchenwald concentration camp after 11 days of imprisonment. Walter Bloomfield is ordered to report immediately to the Hanover State Police. Westerbork in the Netherlands, at first refugee camp and later a transit camp encircled by a moat dug by Jewish prisoners. Ruth, Marianne, Walter, and Albert in Westerbork in May 1941, 1 year after their hopes of immigrating to the United States had vanished. Ruth Bloomfield's work identification card issued in Westerbork November 5, 1941, with the letter J indicates that the card holder is Jewish. And then the last page of this chapter is also another page of pictures. A transport list of those Westerbork prisoners being shipped to Bergen-Belsen in February 1944. The 4 members of the Bloomfield family are designated as stateless, and Marianne's name appears as the sometimes used Leone. Men, women, and children from Westerbork transit camp waiting to board a deportation train bound for one of the concentration camps in Germany of Eastern Europe. That is the end of chapter 3. I will see you guys in the next video for chapter 4. Bye!